Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going deep, really deep, into one of gaming's most philosophically rich titles, BioShock.
Oh, yeah, BioShock.
We'll be using a combination of sources here. We've got the game script itself, we've got some Wikipedia entries, and even a fan-made video essay
Cool.
to really unpack all those complex ideas and themes woven through Rapture, that underwater city.
That's going to be fun.
So this deep dive should be perfect for anyone who's played the game and wants to go a bit deeper, beyond that surface level.
Yeah.
Or even those who are just curious about BioShock's impact on gaming as a whole.
Right. Well, what I think is so fascinating about BioShock, it uses this fictional setting, this underwater city, to really explore some very real philosophical questions.
Right.
About society, about power, and even the nature of choice itself.
Okay, so let's jump right into Rapture then.
Okay.
We start with Andrew Ryan, right?
Yes.
This guy, he's got this vision for this underwater utopia, a haven for the best and brightest, free from what he calls the parasites of society. Artists, religious leaders, governments, things like that.
Yeah, you really hear Ryan laying out his philosophy in those audio diaries, like parasite expectations and the great chain.
Oh, the great chain, okay.
He champions, individual achievement above all else, and he believes industry, free from government or religion, should be that driving force of society.
So these ideas, I feel like I've heard this before. Is this connected to any, real-world philosophies?
Oh, absolutely. What Ryan describes in these diaries, it has some really striking parallels to Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism.
Okay. Objectivism, Ayn Rand.
Yeah, think about it. Rand, she championed individualism and a laissez-faire approach to capitalism.
Right.
Rejecting things like altruism and collectivism. She felt they hindered individual potential.
Okay. Yeah, I'm starting to see the connection here.
And even Ryan's famous line, "Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow?" It almost directly echoes a passage from Rand's Atlas Shrugged.
Wow, that's incredible. So Rapture, this whole society built on complete freedom, self-reliance. That's essentially an experiment in objectivism then.
You could definitely see it that way. And BioShock, it doesn't shy away from exploring the potential pitfalls of that experiment.
Right.
As Rapture crumbles around you, the player, they're forced to confront those ideals, those very ideals that built the city, and the consequences of their failure.
Right. Okay, so we've got this city, and its downfall is fueled by Adam, right?
Yeah.
These plasmids and these terrifying squicers that we encounter. How does that all tie back into this whole philosophical backdrop?
Well, it's interesting because the very things that were meant to liberate the citizens of Rapture, the genetic enhancements from the plasmids and the free market they operate under, they actually become the instruments of their destruction. It really raises the question, can a society built solely on self-interest ever truly be sustainable?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
And that question is really brought to life in Bill McDonough's audio diary, Rapture Changing.
Yes.
It really shows that shift in power from Ryan to Fontaine and how the city descends into chaos.
Precisely. You see the promise of individual freedom, turning into this struggle for power and survival.
Yeah.
And as players journey through this decaying utopia, they're confronted with another big question, what choices will you make in this morally compromised world?
Yeah. That leads us perfectly into the moral dilemma surrounding the little sisters then, right? These little girls wandering around with their protectors. The big daddies.
Yes, the iconic harvest or save choice.
Yeah.
BioShock, it forces you to make a difficult decision. Do you exploit these vulnerable children for their edem, which would, enhance your own abilities? Or do you save them knowing it'll come at a personal cost? There are no easy answers.
It's a choice that really stuck with me, especially when you listen to Tenenbaum's audio diaries like Hatred and Functional Children. Hearing her grapple with the ethics of using these children for anime production, it's just heartbreaking.
Absolutely. Tenenbaum's own internal struggle, it adds another layer to this moral dilemma. It highlights the very real consequences of scientific progress, and it makes you, the player, confront the fact that even in this fantastical setting, there are innocent victims.
Right. And then there's that twist, the one that left everyone reeling. We have to talk about Would You Kindly?
Yes, the moment the rug is pulled out from under you, the game reveals that you, as Jack, have been a pawn all along. Controlled by that seemingly innocuous phrase, it's a gut punch for sure.
It really makes you question everything you thought you knew about your choices in the game. Diaries like Mind Control Test and Ryan's Final Confrontation, they lay out the chilling reality of this manipulated existence.
What's fascinating here is how BioShock uses this twist to make a commentary on the very nature of free will and control, not just within the game world, but potentially in our own lives as well. You know, are we truly in control of our choices, or are we all influenced by forces beyond our understanding?
Yeah, that's a lot to unpack, and
Yeah.
I think it ties into something we see with another character, Sander Cohen.
Yeah.
He's this eccentric, sometimes terrifying artist,
Yeah.
completely obsessed with creating beauty even as Rapture falls apart. We see this in the Fort Frolic level, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cohen and Fort Frolic, they provide a fascinating lens through which to view the role of art in a decaying society. His dialogue from the game script, it reveals a deep desire for beauty and meaning, even amidst the chaos.
His insistence on referring to himself as the artist, with a capital A, that always struck me. He seemed to see himself as above the rules, beyond conventional morality.
Right, and that actually connects back to those objectivist ideals we discussed earlier. Cohen, in a twisted way, he embodies a distorted version of individual expression. He's taken it to the extreme, often with devastating consequences for those around him.
It makes you wonder, can a society that prioritizes individual achievement above all else truly foster a sense of community or shared morality?
That is the question, isn't it? And BioShock, it doesn't offer easy answers. It forces you to confront these difficult questions, to consider the potential and the peril of unchecked ambition, both on a personal and societal level.
We've covered a lot of ground already, but
Yeah.
but there's still so much to explore.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really excited to dive even deeper into the world of Rapture and the questions it raises.
Me too.
Let's continue this conversation in part 2 of our deep dive.
Yeah, let's do it. Welcome back. I'm eager to continue exploring Rapture, with its complex web of philosophy, morality, and artistic expression.
Yeah, me too. Before the break, we were talking about Sander Cohen, this flamboyant artist obsessed with beauty, even as everything around him is falling apart. He's such a fascinating, albeit disturbing character.
Absolutely. He represents the extremes of artistic obsession, and how the pursuit of beauty can become twisted and even monstrous.
Yeah, and there's that unsettling scene where Cohen forces you as Jack to become part of his artistic masterpiece, right? I'm thinking about that whole sequence in Fort Frolic.
Precisely. The player is forced to kill splicers in very specific choreographed ways to satisfy Cohen's, twisted artistic vision. It's unsettling for sure, and it raises important questions about the dark side of artistic passion.
Yeah, and it's not just the actions he forces on you. The game script really highlights his megalomania. The way Cohen refers to himself as the artist, with a capital A.
Yeah.
It's as if he sees himself as above ordinary people and the constraints of morality.
Which, interestingly enough, ties back to those objectivist ideals we were discussing earlier. In a way, Cohen is a warped reflection of Andrew Ryan's philosophy. He embodies an extreme version of individual expression, with devastating consequences for those around him.
It really makes you think about the limits of individual freedom, especially when it comes at the expense of others.
Yes, and BioShock constantly challenges you to consider that balance between personal freedom and social responsibility. It's a theme that permeates not only the characters, but the very environment of Rapture itself.
Rapture, it's more than just a setting. It's a character in its own right. It's this once gleaming metropolis that has descended into chaos and ruin.
Exactly, and the architecture of the city reflects that downward spiral. Initially, the Art Deco style is elegant and optimistic, but as you progress through the game, it becomes increasingly warped and grotesque.
It's as though the city itself is mirroring the mental state of its inhabitants.
That's a great observation. the visual design of the game is so crucial to conveying its themes. You see the beauty of Rapture juxtaposed against its decay, a constant reminder that even the grandest ideals can be corrupted.
And then there are those audio diaries, scattered throughout the city. It's like finding pieces of a puzzle, these snippets of personal stories and confessions that offer a glimpse into the lives of the people who built and ultimately destroyed Rapture.
The audio diaries are so effective at building empathy for these characters. You hear their hopes and dreams turn to despair as the city crumbles around them. You begin to understand their motivations and how they descended into madness.
It's almost like you're piecing together a historical record of a fallen civilization, and each diary adds another layer to the complex web of philosophical and ethical questions the game raises.
And it's not just about the past either. Many of those diaries, they foreshadow events to come, adding a layer of suspense and intrigue to the narrative. You start to question everything and everyone, wondering who to trust and what secrets Rapture holds.
That feeling of constant uncertainty, of being unsure who to trust, it really adds to the overall tension of the game.
Absolutely. It keeps you engaged, constantly on edge. And it's this masterful blend of storytelling and gameplay that truly immerses you in the world of Rapture.
Let's talk about the gameplay itself. BioShock was innovative for its time, blending first-person shooter action with role-playing elements.
It offered a level of freedom and customization that was groundbreaking back in 2007. You could modify your character's abilities through plasmids, these genetic modifications that granted you superhuman powers.
Right, telekinesis, pyromancy. I mean, it's like you're playing as a genetically enhanced super soldier.
Exactly. It adds a level of depth and strategy to the combat, allowing for different approaches, stealth, hacking, all-out plasmid-fueled assaults. But it also cleverly ties back into the game's thematic concerns about the ethical implications of genetic manipulation.
It raises those questions we've been grappling with. Are we becoming too powerful? What are the consequences of tampering with our own biology?
Precisely. The gameplay itself becomes a philosophical experiment, challenging you to consider the limits of human potential and the dangers of our own hubris.
But even with its innovative gameplay and immersive world building, BioShock wasn't immune to criticism. Some critics felt that the harvest or save mechanic, the choice we make with the Little Sisters, was a superficial moral decision. Did it really impact the narrative in a meaningful way?
That was a common criticism, yes. Some felt it reduced a complex ethical dilemma to a simple gameplay choice. You could choose to be the good guy and save the Little Sisters, but you were still fighting your way through splicers and exploiting the environment to your advantage.
It makes you wonder, can a video game truly offer meaningful moral choices? Or will they always be limited by the mechanics of the medium?
It's an ongoing debate in the gaming world.
Yeah.
And BioShock remains a key example in those discussions about player agency and the relationship between narrative and gameplay.
BioShock also seems to wrestle with the challenge of critiquing objectivism, while simultaneously placing the player within an objectivist framework.
Yep.
You're constantly striving for survival, acquiring resources, and upgrading your abilities.
Yes, and that creates an interesting tension. Is the player, by engaging in those actions, ultimately reinforcing the very philosophy the game seems to be critiquing?
It's a fascinating contradiction. It's like the game isn't trying to give you the answers, but rather prompting you to think critically about the world you're inhabiting and your own role within it.
Exactly, and that thought-provoking quality is a big part of why BioShock has had such a lasting impact. It goes beyond just entertainment. It becomes an experience that stays with you.
Speaking of its lasting impact, we need to talk about BioShock's legacy. It's become a cultural phenomenon, even recognized by institutions like the Smithsonian American Art Museum.
That's right. BioShock has earned its place as a significant work of art, and its influence on other games is undeniable.
It paved the way for a whole wave of narrative-driven first-person shooters that weren't afraid to tackle complex themes and challenge storytelling conventions. Games like Dishonored, Prey, even The Last of Us owe a debt to BioShock.
Absolutely. They all share that commitment to creating immersive worlds, compelling characters, and thought-provoking narratives that resonate long after the credits roll. BioShock demonstrated that games could be more than just entertainment. They could be art, social commentary, philosophical explorations.
And it did all that while still being a fantastic game to play.
Precisely. BioShock struck that perfect balance between engaging gameplay and a thought-provoking narrative. It's the kind of game that rewards multiple playthroughs, each time revealing new layers of meaning and complexity.
It's a game that sparks endless conversations and debates, which is what we're doing right now.
Exactly. And ultimately that's what makes it such a masterpiece. BioShock respects its players' intelligence and challenges them to think critically about the world around them.
Before we resurface from this deep dive, we have to talk about the game's ending. It really throws another wrench into everything we thought we knew about choice, free will, and the nature of power in Rapture. Welcome back to our final segment, exploring the depths of BioShock. We've delved into Rapture's, its philosophy, its downfall, and even wrestled with those thought-provoking moral choices the game presents. Now it's time to face the music, the game's ending, and all the complexities it brings.
And what an ending it is. It truly throws a wrench into everything we thought we knew about the game and our role as players.
Right. We spent all this time guiding Jack, making choices that we thought were our own, only to discover that we were literally controlling him the entire time. That "would you kindly" twist is just brutal.
It's a masterstroke of narrative design. It completely reframes your experience of the game. Suddenly those choices you made, the agency you felt you had, are cast in a completely different light. It makes you question, were you ever truly in control, or were you simply acting out a predetermined script?
It's almost like a meta commentary on gaming itself.
Yeah.
This illusion of choice versus the predetermined path set by the developers.
Exactly, but it goes even deeper than that. The ending forces you to confront the true nature of power and control, not just in the game world, but potentially in our own lives, you know?
Yeah.
It's not always about brute force or physical domination. Sometimes it's about manipulation, persuasion, and exploiting the very systems that are meant to give people freedom.
Think about Andrew Ryan and his unshakable belief of the great chain. This idea that individual effort and industry are interconnected. The ending shows how easily that chain can be twisted, used to control others rather than liberate them.
It's a chilling reminder that even in a society built on freedom, power structures still exist and can be used in insidious ways. And it's not just Fontaine who's guilty of this manipulation.
Right. We can't forget Ryan's own actions. Manipulating the Little Sisters, using propaganda to sway public opinion, even resorting to violence to maintain his grip on Rapture.
Exactly. The game highlights how absolute power corrupts. Regardless of ideology or good intentions, it makes you re-examine those earlier philosophical debates about objectivism and individualism. Is a society built purely on self-interest truly sustainable? Or will it inevitably devolve into a struggle for power and control?
And if our choices are ultimately predetermined, as the ending suggests, does that mean free will is just an illusion? Or can we break free from those constraints and forge our own path?
Those are some heavy questions, and BioShock doesn't offer, easy answers. The brilliance of the game is that it leaves you grappling with those questions long after the credits roll.
It stays with you, provoking thought and debate. It makes you question the choices you make, not just in games, but in life as well.
And that's the hallmark of truly great art, isn't it? It challenges you, makes you uncomfortable, and forces you to confront your own beliefs and assumptions about the world.
In a world saturated with entertainment that often shies away from complexity, BioShock stands out as this bold, intellectual, and artistic experience.
Yeah.
It doesn't just want to entertain you, it wants to make you think, to make you feel, to make you question everything.
And even though the game was released back in 2007, its themes and ideas feel incredibly relevant today. We're still grappling with these very same questions about power, control, and the influence of technology on our lives.
BioShock provides this amazing lens to examine those issues. It reminds us that the choices we make, individually and collectively, have consequences. And it pushes us to be more critical and thoughtful about the world around us.
BioShock shows us that even in seemingly hopeless situations, even when faced with overwhelming odds, there's always potential for resistance, for change, for hope.
That glimmer of hope, that belief in the power of individual action makes BioShock more than just a dystopian nightmare. It becomes a story that speaks to our very human desire for freedom and meaning.
So as we conclude our deep dive into BioShock, I encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep searching for those hidden depths.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of BioShock. Until next time.